Hello and welcome back for another look at the X-Files. Today we're going to be looking at Piper Maru, episode 15 of season 3. Debuting February 9th, 1996, Piper Maru follows Mulder and Scully as they investigate a sunken World War II aircraft that has something of a mysterious past. French salvagers have been sent to recover a downed World War II aircraft in the Pacific Ocean. And I don't mean to nitpick, but even though they are supposed to be in the middle of the ocean, they are awfully close to the land. Everything seems to be going well so far, and they actually do manage to find the downed aircraft. Generally, you shouldn't be hearing banging coming from inside a 50-year-old fighter plane. They lose contact with the diver Gautier just as he discovers someone still alive inside the aircraft. He looks pretty great for having been submerged this whole time. I wonder what his skincare routine is. You know, humans' eyes are generally not supposed to do that. Gautier is brought back aboard, and whatever the hell was in that man's eyes is now in his. We catch up with my future ex-wife, who gets called into the office by Skinner. Seeing as how it's first thing in the morning, it has to be good news.
And your sister. It's been 5 months and there have been no new leads or evidence in her murder investigation by the DC police team or the Bureau. I've been told the case is to be made inactive until further notice.
Alright, so the news isn't so great. The investigation on Scully's sister's murder has been put on hold until further notice because they claim not to have enough manpower. Although this isn't Skinner's doing, so don't go blaming him. Scully is rightfully pissed because these pricks in the government can track down anyone and anything, but a lone woman gets murdered, the weapon that killed her is left behind, and suddenly they can't find shit. Now that her day is rightfully ruined, she has to deal with Mulder ranting about UFOs and Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's where the boat we know as the Talipus pulled up what you believe was a Russian sub and what I believe was the remains of a UFO.
So Mulder caught wind of another salvage ship called the Piper Maru that has been seen in the same area as the Talipus, the salvage ship from the episode Nisei. He thinks something must still be out in that area, and now the French are looking for it. To top everything off, the entire crew of the Piper Maru are all being treated for radiation. But how can a downed aircraft give off so much radiation that it affects an entire salvage crew? Well, that's what they intend to find out. They head to the naval base where the men are being treated, but the doctor has no idea how these men came into contact with so much radiation. Scully asks the doc a question about the radiation, and he just stares at her like, how the hell would she know anything about radiation sickness? Scully tells someone she's a medical doctor.
These symptoms, would you characterize them as acute or somatic? I'm a medical doctor.
What's the matter? Although I don't think we've seen the worst of it.
The men are basically exposed to radiation on the level of what people experienced during Hiroshima. But the weirder thing is one of the men had no signs of radiation exposure at all. And if you haven't guessed already, it was the diver Gautier, the man with the black eye boogers.
The crew of the ship is being treated for radiation.
Yeah, we got all that. We had a hazmat team pouring over the boat, didn't find a trace.
The agents make their way to the Piper Maru, but there doesn't seem to be any signs of radiation at all. With no worries of radiation, the agents are allowed on the ship to conduct a search. Mulder discovers an oily substance on the diving suit, and he was so close to tasting it. I know he wanted to. They then discover the monitors that were recording the discovery of the plane during the dive and while they play back the tape.
It's a North American P-51 Mustang.
Yeah, it sure is.
I just got very turned on.
Turned on? I'm gonna need a cold shower. With this discovery, Scully writes down some of the aircraft's information as she knows someone who may be able to help. Meanwhile, Gautier is tearing apart his own home, looking to see if he's won the 1996 SummerSlam sweepstakes.
Well, stop dreaming. Stridex can make your dreams a reality with the Stridex SummerSlam sweepstakes.
Ugh, instead he just sees his wife. She seems pretty happy, but he's all zombied out. He chases her down, and I'm starting to think those black eye boogers are the cause of all of this. I love that the producers had to show that the wife has now also been taken over by the oil, otherwise dummies in the audience might not understand what's going on. Scully arrives at the Miramar Naval Station so she can speak to an old friend of the family, Commander Johansson, who might be able to help her.
Mr. Gautier!
Meanwhile, Mulder is at Gautier's place, and I love the way he pronounces the man's name.
Mr. Gautier! Mr. Gautier? Mr. Gautier?
Look, I'm the last person to make fun of someone's pronunciation. I can barely say anything that has a vowel in it. Mulder does some snooping around and a little mail tampering, but somehow this piece of mail changes from Marcel Gauthier to Bernard. He takes the piece of mail and then heads to the kitchen, where he finds Gauthier covered in more of that oily substance that he found earlier on the ship. Gauthier has no idea how he got there or why. Last thing he remembers is the salvage boat. Mulder presses him on the piece of mail he found addressed from a salvage broker, but Gauthier is done talking without some kind of representation.
I used to live 3 doors down. My father was Captain William Scully. I went to school with your son.
Scully speaks with the commander, but he really isn't any help. Every question she asks about the plane, he just claims he can't remember or doesn't know. We all know this is the X-Files, and these olds always know a hell of a lot more than what they let on. Meanwhile, Mulder makes his way to that salvage broker, and she seems like a friendly lady. Nothing worse than a good old double barrel to the boys. He asks if he can speak to Mr. Kalinchuk, the man who sent the letter, but Geraldine claims he's unavailable at the moment. Although Mulder isn't exactly a dumbass, so he decides to wait it out. And good thing he does, because it looks like a party is about to break out with all those Uzis these random men are carrying. I think Geraldine was expecting company as well, because she hightails it the hell out of there. We're back with Scully, and see, I was right. These old folks are always hiding some nefarious shit. He knew about the downcraft because he was part of the original team that was sent down to find it after the war.
I think I just found out what those men were exposed to. What the Piper Maru was out there looking for.
What?
Scully calls Mulder to let him know the commander told her the aircraft is carrying an atomic bomb, and that's the reason why the men were exposed to radiation. Although it didn't explode, and the diver wasn't affected, so what's up with that? Anyways, Mulder wants her to look into why the diver was unaffected. Meanwhile, he's flying to Hong Kong to tail Geraldine, but for the love of God, stay away from the wet market. He's also not alone in his pursuit, because Gauthier's wife is also on the move. Oh yeah, Skinner's in this one. I don't know what these guys want, but imagine thinking you can intimidate Skinner.
You take your orders like those below you, Mr. Skinner. The case is made inactive, the death of an FBI agent's sister.
So these clowns are all butthurt because even though Melissa's case has been shut down for the time being, Skinner is still looking into it. So they think they can come down here and scare him into stopping. Do they not know what he did in Vietnam? These choir boys wouldn't stand a chance. Scully is still talking to the old man. Well, he has a lovely story about the search for the aircraft and how every person aboard the sub besides himself and a few others died due to radiation. I hope whoever decided to use a toy submarine got a raise, because this is adorable. Basically, all the men were dying because of radiation, and the captain wouldn't give the order to return home. So Johansson and a few others took things into their own hands and locked the captain away with the injured. Oh, and the captain was infected with the black oil.
The seat taken, Miss Kalinchuk? Geraldine Kalinchuk, isn't it?
See, Mulder is no fool. There was no Mr. Kalinchuk. It was her this whole time, and she would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for this pesky FBI agent. Geraldine is there to sell some sensitive information about the plane to a buyer, and she somehow thinks Mulder is just gonna let it slide. He doesn't have his gun with him because, well, no one does in Hong Kong, but no one said anything about handcuffs. They make their way back to her room, but it looks like she has some company waiting for her.
Krychek. I thought guns were against the law here.
Yeah, well, you know what they say. When guns are outlawed.
Ugh, Krychek. Krychek shoves her outside the room, and she is immediately shot by those same guys that came to her office. Before the men burst inside, Krychek takes off, and Mulder manages to free himself from the handcuffs just in time. But just how damn fast is he? The men think they're gonna chase Mulder down, but Mrs. Gauthier arrives and flashes them.
Hey, you. Finally awake.
Meanwhile, Skinner is back at his little hangout, and this guy looks kind of familiar. The guy starts bitching at the poor waitress because the payphone doesn't work, like it's her fault or something. And well, Skinner has heard about all he can from this jackass.
Yeah, there is a big problem. Chupadura, amigo.
Chalupa what? Ricky Ricardo here is a terrible assassin. First he shoots the wrong Scully, then only shoots Skinner one time. I'm not saying that it can't kill him, but at least fire a few more times to make sure you finish the job before you leave. Meanwhile, at the Hong Kong airport, Krychek makes the mistake of thinking Mulder is dead.
That's for your partner. This is for me.
I kind of feel bad for Krychek. Every time he comes into contact with Mulder, he gets his ass beat. He really needs to take up boxing or something. Sure, he killed Mulder's father and he deserves a beating, but it's so easy to do, you almost feel sorry for him. Mulder wants the digital tape that Krychek has been using to sell government secrets, which I think is supposed to be the same tape from Paperclip, but he claims it's locked up in a locker in DC, so if Mulder wants it, then he'll need to let him go. Again, Mulder isn't that stupid. He may let Krychek go, but not until he has that damn tape. Anyways, Krychek is sent to the bathroom like a little child so he can clean his bloodied face. Krychek really has the worst luck when it comes to women, and now he's also infected with that black oil. Piper Maru is a good episode. I love that despite Melissa's case basically being closed, Skinner has taken it upon himself to continue going over the evidence to make sure they didn't miss anything. Yeah, it got him shot, but it just further cements that even though he can be a hard ass at times, he still has the agent's backs. The introduction of the black oil is also a pretty big deal for the series, because it's going to be one of the primary focuses of the main storyline for the foreseeable future. Even though later it starts to become a little confusing, at least for me, but I'm a dumbass. But I do think it's a cool addition, even if at this point we know very little of it. The episode was written by Frank Spotnitz, but was originally conceived by Chris Carter. Since the start of the show, Chris had always wanted to show the image of a fighter pilot stuck inside the cockpit of a World War II aircraft, which also just happened to be submerged underwater. He also envisioned a black and white flashback scene that would take place inside of a World War II submarine. So this episode is really the result of two things Chris thought would be neat, and they just wrote an entire episode around them. The director of the episode, Rob Bowman, also shared some of his diving experience with Chris and thought writing an episode around something creepy that they found underwater would be really cool. It's like they knew what terrifies me the most and wrote an entire episode around it. Following the episode 731, Frank began writing this episode while on a flight. He didn't have any paper with him and instead used a magazine to start jotting down his ideas. He knew he wanted to bring back Krychek in the episode and touch upon Melissa's murder again, but also had to somehow work in those two scenes that Chris just had to have. The episode was named after Jillian's daughter, Piper Maru Klotz, who was also the goddaughter of Chris Carter. The Piper Maru was also the name of the icebreaker ship in the hit Oscar-winning film Alien vs. Predator. Alright, maybe it didn't win any Oscars, but it should have. Jillian herself found the episode to be one of the more emotional episodes to film, and in the book The Official Guide to the X-Files, she said, Piper Maru was challenging. There was something about it, having to pull from the past, how it brought the present and the past together. It was just good to play. Kim Manners also thought Jillian did a great job, even saying how much she's grown as an actress compared to season 1. During the scene where Scully reminisces, thinking about playing with her sister on the naval base, Rob Bowman had Jillian stare at a tree and give her reaction. In the X-Files Confidential, Rob apparently said to Jillian, "I'm going to tell everybody I can that you just did that great reaction to a tree." Rob also reshot the ending of the episode. Originally, Krychek and Mulder were both supposed to walk towards the camera, and then the camera would watch as they walk off in the distance. However, Rob didn't think it worked, so instead he just had Krychek walk directly into the camera, which is also how the cold opening for the episode Irresistible ended. The oil effects were all added digitally after filming. They messed around with various substances until they settled upon oil and acetone, because it gave a somewhat blob-like look. They then took this and digitally placed it over the actor's eyes, with special effects artist Matt Beck warping it so it would blend in smoothly and look more natural. The guest actors in the episode all do a good job, although like most mythology episodes, there usually aren't many new faces. R.E. Solomon and Kimberly Younger both do fine as the Gautiers, but they really don't have much to do outside of just looking stoic. Jo Bates, who played Geraldine, at least has a little bit more to do, but outside of this role, she really hasn't done much. The most notable guest star would definitely be Robert Clothier as Commander Christopher Johansson. Robert was born October 21st, 1921, and was most known for his role in the long-running Canadian show The Beachcombers, which honestly I've never even heard of, but it ran from 1972 to 1990 and had 374 episodes, with Robert appearing in every single one. He joined the Royal Canadian Air Force when he was a young man and was even awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. Robert even cheated death when on December 23, 1944, he was piloting a Mitchell bomber that crashed upon takeoff. Of the 4 aboard, he was the only one to survive, although an injury to his back left him paralyzed from the waist down for 2 years. In 1996, Robert suffered a stroke, which left him in poor health. But despite that, and being the badass that he is, he still managed to teach himself to paint with his left hand after he could no longer use his right. Robert sadly passed away February 10th, 1999 at the age of 77. Piper Maru currently sits at an 8.4 on IMDb, and I think an 8 is where I would have it as well. It's a solid episode, and while it's not one of my favorite mythology episodes, it still has some great moments. Up next, things heat up even more when Mulder discovers clues that lead him to a cover-up of an alien entity, and Scully tracks down her sister's killer in the episode Apocrypha. So what do you think of Piper Maru? Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you beautiful people are having a great day, and as always, stay spooky.
An alien life form trapped at the bottom of the ocean. Now it has escaped.
Whatever these men came in contact with, it was man-made.
Not on this planet. And is hiding in one of us. A brand new X-Files, Friday at 9, 8 Central.